Hi, I'm Donna Davis, along with Richard Cole, the owner and founder of Cole's Wild Bird Products. And Richard is a birding expert here to answer all of your birding questions. So, we have the big topic that we're going to cover
We do.
today, one that everybody's talking about, right?
Yeah.
And been reading in the news. It's a Cornell University study that was published in the journal Science, I believe, about the decline of birds. We're also going to tell us a little bit about just what's going on this time of year, right? We're going to touch on
Yes.
some of those things that are going on right now with birds.
Are not going on this time of year.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, there's kind of a slowdown, but uptick in different things, and
Yeah.
you always keep track of everything. So, first of all, if you haven't heard about, and we invite you to tell us where you're watching, we really want you to be interactive. Richard will answer your questions. He's such a great expert and offers advice. So, a lot of us have heard about this study, and if you haven't, it was published in September, Journal Science. It's getting a lot of comments. The U.S. and Canada apparently have lost 3 billion birds since 1970, and scientists say nature is unraveling. So, just your perspective as a birding expert, just on that statement. What do you think, Richard?
That's an alarmist statement, and it should be. It's like 3 billion birds. That's a lot of anything.
Right.
And it is something to be concerned about. The study was somewhat widespread. It's now getting a lot of views online and things. People are very interested in it. And we want to talk a little bit about the study and what does it mean to us.
Yeah, and what can we do, right? So we're going to go through some of that. So I'm going to read a little bit about this. So the author of the study, Pete Mara, watched birds growing up in the woods, and then he noticed that he wasn't seeing nearly as many. He analyzed 5 decades of population on 529 North American birds. And since 1970, North America, the U.S. and Canada have lost 1/4 of its bird population. And that's fallen by 3 billion, with grassland birds like meadowlarks and American sparrows and the shorebirds such as green herons taking the biggest hit. Now, why would you say that those particular birds are taking such a hit?
Well, you look at where they live and what's going on in that particular environment. Coastal birds, as an example, we mentioned the bright spots. That's a different story. But in the farmlands, in the grasslands, this is where that sparrow is at, and where a lot of the meadowlarks are at, and a lot of other bird species in that are having more trouble because of the things that are affecting these birds are more prevalent in those areas. And we're going to get into exactly what some of the real problems are in a few minutes, I think, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And so, explaining the decline, they say researchers concluded, of course, that humans are driving that decline. Clearing of land, widespread pesticide use, allowing domestic cats to roam outdoors are some of the biggest problems. And cats are estimated to kill more than 1 billion birds each year in the U.S. So that seems crazy, right?
We're going to do some math on that in a few minutes too. That particular one, it's like, wow, cats, and everybody loves their
Yeah.
cats. I love cats, but there can be a problem if we're not, if it's not done right.
Yeah, so there must be more outside. And habitat loss is huge. Like you mentioned, clearing of forests, grasslands,
Yeah.
erecting buildings, roads, more farms, and the use of, how do you pronounce that? Insecticides?
Let's just say pesticides.
Yeah.
Insecticides.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. It's not the insecticide itself that's killing the birds, but
At this point, yeah. Back before pre-1970, we were having a big problem, and because there was pesticides in use that have been, DDT was the main culprit, in use widespread in all the farmlands and a lot of other applications, and that was getting into the environment, and the birds were having problems, especially larger birds, especially eagles and things, because the eggshells that they were laying weren't thick enough anymore to support the chick. So
that's
the eggs
sad.
would crack, and so they weren't able to reproduce. DDT got banned. A lot of things got put into place, along with other environmental efforts were issued to help some of these problems. And a lot of these birds now have rebounded and are doing quite well. So we had a problem. We solved it. Everybody worked together to solve it. But now there's new classes of pesticides out to replace it. And they're actually more bird and wildlife friendly directly. However, there's a backside to that. They're also very effective at doing what they're supposed to do, which is kill the insects. So we get out to the grasslands, you have two things going on. One, other than loss of habitat, where there is a habitat and the pesticides are out there, they aren't affecting the birds as much. They still are a little, however, they're killing the insects. That just gets rid of the birds' food supply.
Yeah.
Because most birds are mostly insect eaters. They eat berries and other things, but they do eat insects. That's where they get a lot of their food. So if you get rid of all the insects, the birds no longer have anything to eat.
Yeah, it's like the insects bug us, so
Yeah.
we want to kill them all.
Yeah.
Without thought to, we're killing these beautiful
Yes.
birds. You get rid of the and you and I talked about. It seems like yes, whereas in the 1970s there was a lot of commercial use of these pesticides and things, but now
And that's
it's
when
like
you brought
everyone.
up an excellent point. And a lot of these things we don't all think about all the time. It's like, okay, well, that's their problem or they're doing it. But all of a sudden, with the advent of the do-it-yourself-at-home type stores
Yeah.
everywhere, and we're all wanting a nice yard, we all have total access to tons of pesticides. That wasn't, when I was growing up, I like the story about, oh, we had all these birds and then they built this and built that. And by the time I was in high school, the birds were gone. I lived through that.
Yeah.
And but now we didn't have in our yard, it wasn't beautifully manicured and everything. We didn't put things on it. Maybe a little fertilizer occasionally, that was it. But now there's so many different chemicals, so many different pesticides for inside the house, outside the house. Blow it into the air because you want a picnic.
Well,
It's out there.
and my parents, I would have to say, growing up, I never thought about it till now, but only if there was a problem
Yeah.
with a certain insect did we go to the store and like buy like wasp spray.
Yeah.
But we did not monthly pay a service to come out like I do now to, treat for insects. I mean, that is just the widespread use of that is phenomenal compared to the 70s.
And all of that is not a huge problem, but everything adds up. And
Right.
we just have to be much more conscious of what we're doing and don't put pesticides out if you don't really need to.
Right.
And make sure you kind of know about which pesticides people are using in your yard. And just be a little cautious about it.
Yeah, when we had a
That'll help.
landscaper at one point, I said, don't just treat the whole lawn. If there's a few weeds, treat those weeds. But you don't have to treat everything. So I wanted to also, you talked about the success and the rebound. Tell us about your part in helping to rebound the eagles back to the southeast.
It started as the state DNR was saying, we have a problem. They started counting the eagle nest, and I think it was like one, maybe two successful eagle nests in the entire state of Georgia. And they said that's when they knew there was a problem. It had been a declining population for a while. Georgia got proactive, and along with the legislation to start the Clean Air and Water Act, which really helped, they said we need to boost the population. Northwest U.S. and Southwest Canada still had decent populations of eagles, and there was a process where you would take eagles out of the nest. Like if there's two chicks, you take one, because most likely two of them, the second one may not live anyhow, and it's a good nest, they're healthy, you take one, and you put it on a plane and bring it to Atlanta.
Really?
Yes, and this was done in several different states from the Northwest down to the Southeast, and they would bring them in here, and there would be a place on some secluded area. There was some down on the coast of Georgia, and there was one on Lake Allatoona in Northwest Georgia. And there would be like a few telephone poles going way up and a little tree house on top, which is an artificial nesting site with a cage around it.
Wow.
And we would bring the eagles in, take them up there, put them into the cage on the front side, and a little backside had a compartment where we could climb up and be on the backside and put roadkill through a tube to feed them. That way they were never directly fed by a human. They had bars on the front of the thing overlooking the lake.
That worked. That's amazing.
And they were almost at the age where they'd fly anyhow, so they're up there for 2 or 3 weeks. They're fed by roadkill. Somebody was going around picking up roadkill in the area.
That's amazing that people could do that.
And then at the time they were ready, they had stretched their wings, we'd open the front of the cage, and they would take off.
No way.
No,
That's hard to believe that they wouldn't have to have a mother and father role to watch
They
and all that.
know what they're supposed to do. Unlike
Yeah.
humans, we have to be taught everything. They're kind of born with the knowledge of what they're
Yeah.
supposed
That's
to do.
amazing.
And,
That's such a great thing to be a part of.
The birds, I don't remember exactly how many were released in Georgia. It was quite a few. We participated in 4, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And you think, well, maybe that's the offspring of the one we did. You don't
Yeah,
know.
of
And
course.
you can only hope. But the population of eagles in Georgia and the entire Southeast is rebounded and is doing really great.
See, it's great to have a success story when you hear this
A
because
lot of people working behind the scenes and volunteering
Yeah.
to make things like this happen. And the same type of work.
we have
be
to do
applied to-
now.
Sure.
Right, we have to do it.
Sure.
So we do want to talk about, before we get into what you can do, we want to tell you that there are some bright spots to this study, and that not all birds are on the decline. Waterfowl have grown over the last 50 years, thanks to policies, like you said, as the 1972 Clean Water Act that have helped to conserve wetlands. And then you have huge flocks of ducks and geese, and that didn't happen in the 60s and 70s.
Big change.
And lawmakers can help by enacting legislation to conserve federal lands and curb the use of insecticides. And bird lovers can help too. Each and every one of
Yes.
us can do a lot of things. So, before we get into our list, we have to let's talk about the cats first and how the cats could do so much damage and what people could do with their cats. And the suggestion here is keep your cats inside.
Cats, that's a very, very polarizing subject. People get very defensive about their cats. My cat don't eat birds.
Yeah.
And or if someone suggests that their cat may be a problem, you're a cat hater.
Yeah.
That may not be the case. I love cats. I don't have a cat. I love cats. If I had a cat, it would be an indoor cat, or it'd be in a very small enclosed area outside, but it would not be allowed to roam. And I heard stories for a long time, but someone said, well, my cat doesn't eat birds. And I'd say, well, did it ever eat a bird? Did it ever catch a bird? Well, yeah, a long time ago. What'd you do? Well, I fussed at it, and it didn't do it again. Well, you trained it not to bring the bird back to you.
Yeah.
But you can't train it not to have that instinct to hunt the birds.
Right.
That's what they're made to do. The real problem is there's 85 to 95 million birds, 85 to 95 million cats in the United States. All of them don't roam outside. Enough of them do. If those birds only caught those cats only caught one bird a month, you're looking at millions and millions of, you're looking at the number we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
only one a month, too.
only
You
one a
said
month,
is probably not even realistic.
Some cats don't get outdoors, they don't catch birds. But the ones who are out there roaming get a lot more than one bird a month because that's what
They're
live
made to do it.
do.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of two things. One, keep your cat away from the birds, away from the bird feeders. Keep them indoors. That's the best place to have a nice cat.
Yeah.
And indoor cats are nice animals.
Yeah.
And be aware that this could be going on. And do your best to not let it happen. And that will help a lot for these birds that are getting taken by
Yeah.
cats.
And I definitely think if you're absolutely, committed to wanting to have an outdoor cat, don't have bird feeders. Don't try to attract the
Yeah.
birds because that's almost like baiting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is like baiting. So it's just a problem to be aware of because
But
that is
nobody
one of the
intends
large
it,
issues
yeah.
that takes a lot of birds that we don't really think about that much. And of course, there's other things we can certainly do.
Yeah. So we do have a comment, and we want to encourage all of you to comment and ask your questions all during the live. Ron Ballard asked, he's commenting and saying that he's seen osprey at Lake Allatoona, but never an eagle. Did the osprey appear naturally, or were they relocated?
No, they're around naturally.
Yeah.
And you'll see those, and a lot of times people may confuse an osprey and an eagle if you don't get a good close
Yeah.
look. And but there are eagles around. They're not like sparrows in your backyard.
Yeah, you're not
They're-
going to see them everywhere.
Yeah, and there are certain areas you can go in coastal Georgia and some places down in there. You see them all the time now. It's a normal thing to see one. And in some areas around the North Georgia area and up into some of the other states, they're normal occurring. You just go up there and you expect to see an eagle or two.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. That's a dramatic change from the 60s and 70s.
And thanks to
Dramatic.
people like you. We owe a debt of gratitude to all the people who did that. So let's talk about one of the big things you can do is make your windows safe. So how do you do that?
That's difficult. We can't help the skyscrapers downtown, and all the office buildings had all the glass, and the birds don't know the difference. They see the sky, they see the stuff behind them, they hit the glass. That takes a toll. You can help at your own house, and just be aware of where you put your bird feeders. I did some work with that a few years back, and one of the things I did was, well, why are they hitting? I went outside and looked back at my window. And try not to do as a human, like, you look right through the window to what you see inside.
Yeah.
I said, no, just look at the window. Well, it's a perfect reflection, and not in color, which doesn't matter, of all the stuff behind me, the trees.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a hurry and I'm needing to get away from somebody, there's a great place to go right there,
Yeah.
right into the glass. So position your bird feeders not directly out in front of the window, off at an angle, like a 45-degree angle would be fine. And don't have, there's a sweet spot where if the feeder's a foot from the window, the birds are not going to kill themselves
Yeah.
turning to run. It's only
Yeah.
it's only a foot away. So they're going to hit, but they'll turn and go. If it's in that probably 4 to 7 foot area, they can turn, get a running head start away from a hawk or a predator coming or something to frighten them, and hit the window directly. So by moving the feeder instead of directly in front of the window, off to the side at an angle, if they start to run toward what they see as trees, a house isn't the problem, it's the reflection of the trees, they'll hit it at a 45-degree angle. Most likely will not kill the bird.
Yeah.
Direct hits are deadly for birds once they get up some speed. So get the feeder out further away so they're not tempted to run toward that big pretty picture of the outdoors,
Yeah.
or get it so close they won't hurt themselves when they do.
So let me ask you this. So we have windows on the back of our house, big glass windows, 2-story.
Yeah.
And what can we do about those? Because they're nowhere close to a feeder, but every once in a while we'll hear a bird hit.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's some stickers that done by several manufacturers. There's 2 types. One is just some type of applique that static clings to the window, has some kind of design on it. Doesn't matter, a fruit basket even, doesn't matter. It's something solid on the outside of the glass, so they see that as opposed to the reflection of what's behind them.
Okay.
So put a few of those on your window in different places, especially if you have a window that's had a hit or two, and I've hit here once a week, they hit this area right here. Well, put a decal
Yeah.
right there.
Okay.
There's some reason they're hitting there. They also have some that are more UV light effective, so they're fairly clear stickers, so you don't notice them on your window so much, but the birds will see them because they're reflecting the UV light that the birds are sensitive to. So they'll see the sticker there, but you won't see it so much.
That appeals much more because
Yeah.
the windows themselves are beautiful, and you want the light coming
Yeah.
in and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and you don't want to junk them up with, too many stickers that
Yeah,
you see too
like
much.
a bad
But I like
bumper
that.
sticker, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, of course, you can put a really light mesh over the window. As long as it's out off the glass by an inch, they'll hit the mesh,
Oh, that's a good idea too.
and
Yeah.
bounce back as opposed to, that's when I won't have any
Yeah.
problems with windows with screens on them.
Yeah.
They hit them, but it's more of a like hitting a trampoline
Yeah.
as opposed to hitting the glass. So
Yeah.
keep screens on the windows where you can, a mesh film out past it, some type of netting,
Mm-hmm.
thin netting, or put stickers on the windows where there might be
Yeah.
chance for a hit.
All really good suggestions. Okay, so less lawn, more native plants.
Yeah, that's always a good suggestion, just to help things out. Our wildlife is designed to eat, use, and survive around our native plants, what's in their area. That's what they're used to. And we come in, we clear the land, and we put non-native plants everywhere. And so
Never thought about
they're
that.
not all that bad, but it really takes away with what some of the birds are using for food, the little flowers, little berries, or the insect that might be on that particular native plant. All of a sudden, it all changes. It's not what they need. So I love some of those plants myself, and I have some, but I also have a good mix of native plants in my yard to kind of balance it out a little bit.
That's a great
use
and an
use
easy.
native species when you can.
Yeah, that's an easy suggestion too. Less pesticides, eat organic. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big, I got to have everything organic, but from the standpoint of the more organic foods I eat, the
Yeah.
more organic foods farmers will grow.
Right.
and which means less pesticides and other things into the environment.
Yeah.
So can't hurt, and probably will help some. So eat organic when you can.
Well, when you think about it, organic wasn't even really a thing a few years ago, and now it is.
Yes.
So, it's definitely made a difference, I think. And an easy thing to do. Use less plastic.
Yeah, plastics, that's part of just really keeping the environment clean. Plastics can be a real major problem in the oceans and in our sea life and waterfowl who are around those areas. Plastic's a major problem.
I just
And,
think, look at the proliferation of plastic water bottles.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, in
Yes.
the 70s, nobody thought they needed to drink, bottled water.
No.
Now
No.
everyone acts like that water's going to kill you. When did that happen,
It came right along with excellent marketing. I did read another article, speaking of this article, just came out a few days ago, about do we need bottled water? Is it any better than the other? The real answer is maybe not.
I saw a special on it, and one of the bottled waters actually uses a city tap water.
Sure.
They actually put city tap
Yes.
water in there and then
Yes.
put a beautiful picture of like Niagara Falls
Yes.
or something on it, and then everybody thinks this water's healthier.
Yeah.
It just kills me. I saw, and it was funny, I noticed at the White House, they were all sitting around their table, and they all had plastic
Sure.
water bottles, and I'd stop my husband instead of even listening to what they're talking about. I'm like, look at the plastic bottles.
Sure.
The next time I saw that same scene, they all had water glasses. And
Good.
I thought, a lot of people called them on it. So
Yes.
those things are huge.
Because I drink water right out of my faucet.
I do
and
too.
I don't think it's that bad.
I don't think it's
mean,
bad.
It tastes okay to me, and I know it's clean. And maybe I'm cheap, but I just don't see the point in spending the money to buy a bottle of water
Yeah.
when it's everywhere in fountains.
And that's what I do. Just like you've got your water over here in a container, I put mine in a container and just leave it there. But little things
Right out
like
of the
that
faucet,
make a big
actually.
difference. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. So, use less plastic, maybe fewer plastic straws, as well as water bottles and that kind of thing. Watch birds and share what you see.
That's sort of like advertising.
Yeah.
To get everybody involved and thinking about it, if you're enjoying your backyard, you're enjoying the birds, you have a birdhouse, bird feeder, tell the stories.
Yeah.
Talk to your friends about it. Hey, this is fun. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, my dog did this, my dog did that. I took my dog for a walk. It was so enjoyable. Talk about your birds in the same light.
Yeah.
Then it becomes more and more popular. More people will be aware of the birds. And when you're aware of the birds, you're aware of the environment around you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really helps. I tell everybody all the time, these birds aren't always in your backyard. They go somewhere else. So, but while they're here in your yard, make sure they have an environment that's safe for them.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, and I say, you can, when they're up here in the breeding area, take good care of them.
Yeah.
Clean up your yard first.
Absolutely. There's so many things that every one of us can do to help bring them back. We do want to encourage you. We only have a few minutes left to just let us know where you're watching from. Put in your city on the comments or ask Richard a question. We are here every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock Eastern Time with Richard to answer your birding questions. So now we're going to just talk about the slow time of the year, kind of what's
Yeah.
going on with the birds right now. Tell us what's going on with nesting and with hummers.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's all
Nothing.
boring.
We're heading into that time of year. I've always tagged it as the fall slowdown.
Yeah.
And when I first got an interest in birds and feeding birds, about this time of year, it's like, what's wrong? They don't like my bird seed.
Aw.
You see them around, they're not eating. Well, there's no reason to. We run
not
into
feeding
in fall
ticks.
slowdown. It happens because there's a lot of natural food abundant. Now, all the weed seeds are getting ripe. All the berries are ripe. All the spiders are out there. They
All
love
the spiders are ripe.
the spiders are ripe. A lot of spiders. They love spiders and
Yeah.
they love insects. A lot of them out there. So they have a lot of natural food to eat. They don't need your bird seed as much. And there's the nesting season is pretty much over with.
What about for bluebirds? And it's been so hot lately, especially in the south, because my husband thought he saw I got bluebird couple starting to build a nest. Just
It's-
cleaned out the nesting box.
It's
I was
possible.
like, what?
It's possible, especially maybe 2-3 weeks ago. They could have started. Some bluebirds will push it late.
Yeah.
I think the record, I believe, is maybe 5 broods in 1 year, which is huge. Usually it's 3. 2, 3, sometimes 4.
But is it the fact that it's been a really hot September? Does that affect anything?
I'm sure it does. I'm not sure exactly what. I
Yeah.
know there's been some studies done about what is the trigger for when they nest. I noticed yesterday, my wife Nancy noticed, she said, oh, listen to Mockingbird. It was singing just like springtime.
Really?
Singing tree. Well, that's because the amount of daylight
Is
is the
back.
same as it is in springtime, which is
Right.
one of the cues for them to start their breeding. So
Oh.
at this time of year, when you get the daylight hours, the same amount as it is in springtime, you'll hear some of these birds singing just like it's springtime.
That's
Won't
so
last too long,
interesting. Yeah.
but that's what they do. So what are the other cues?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them, and like goldfinches just finishing nesting. They nest late in the year, not early, but it's pretty much over with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things to do that was just make sure you go clean out the bird nest and make sure they're ready for the ones who might want to roost in there on cold winter nights. Just get the old nest out, clean it out, put the
Right.
front back on it.
Yeah, he just cleaned them out, and now these bluebirds are going back. So let's see some video of the hummers that we have, because are we still seeing any hummers around? Are you seeing the
Yes.
hummers
Oh,
still?
yeah. There's still. It's not the mad rush here in the southeast that it was 2 weeks ago. It's tapered off quickly. They're moving through, but there'll still be birds moving through here in the southeast for another week or two, maybe
Yeah.
even into mid-November if one of them's running a little later. Its clock is a little off, but it's pretty much over for the southern migration. And up north, there are much fewer of them, if any, in most places.
And you mentioned something that I had no idea about, that that the males are, did you say they were the last to leave? Because we were still seeing the males, and we're like, oh, that's good. Are the males the first to leave, right?
Birds are first.
to leave.
The birds are the
The
male
male,
hummingbirds are the first to arrive in the breeding territories. They want to set up their territory and wait for the chicks.
But what about to leave when they
And-
go to migrate?
They're the first to leave.
Okay,
And
that's
out
what
of
I'm
the-
saying.
Out of the U.S., most hummingbirds are going down to Central America for the winter season to wait while there's food down there, it's warmer down there, there's insects to eat, and but they have pretty much moved out. You'll see a hummingbird in here for a while longer. In fact, there'll be some, and especially in the southeast, folks, just keep a hummingbird feeder out all year long.
Yeah.
Because there are winter birds here. Winter hummingbirds manage to stay in a lot of the southeastern states all year. There won't be a lot of them. Unlikely you'll see one, but you may. If you do, call somebody at one of the local
Yeah.
bird stores or something, report, say, I've got this. Somebody will probably want to come out and investigate it. A lot of the birds we see here in the wintertime are species that just migrated from the west and northwest. They're going to spend their winter in here. Most of our birds, however, are gone down to Central America.
Yeah.
And you'll see a few more.
I'll miss them. They're the most amazing creatures, and I can't get enough of watching those videos. Just, they are just so beautiful and graceful, and then they hit each other so hard. Ron Ballard of Marietta, Georgia, has another comment. He said, still very hot here, and still seeing a few hummers hanging around. The rest of you guys, let us know. Are you still seeing hummers in your yard? And let us know where you're from.
Yeah. The thing is, the hummingbirds you're seeing hanging around your yard are probably not hanging too long. They probably just came down from Cincinnati or southern Canada.
They're just
and
stopping through?
They're on their way. You're
Yeah.
a road stop on the migration to the warm place, and that may be here for a day, maybe 2 days, maybe 3 hours, and you see another one tomorrow. It's probably not the same bird. It's possible, but unlikely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the males move first. The one thing I watched the migration is, as I see a lot of hummingbirds, I see a lot of males. Their migration is still well underway. And then as I see less males and more of the other, I say, yeah, we're past the peak. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you see very few adult males. You start seeing just maybe some immature males, with just a spot or two on the gorget. And the rest of them are females, immature and adult. And then by this time of year, it's pretty much all you're seeing is immature birds and some females. And they're pretty much out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned go ahead and inspect and clean your feeders and houses, and you say assess their best locations, right? So this
Yeah.
is the time to maybe look at changing.
Nothing else is going on, right? I mean, it's over with. The breeding season's over with. Go look at each one of your birdhouses, and I said, clean them out. We've gone over that a few times
Yeah.
before. Get it ready for the overwinter season where they might spend a night in it and be prepared for next year. Inspect it though. Is it loose? Is it about to fall off the post? If it's on a tree, absolutely inspect it because trees tend to grow out push them off the nails. So check that. And also look at all your bird feeders.
Yeah.
Think about each one. Does it need really cleaning? You probably should have been doing that all along, but make sure it's clean. Assess, is it cracked? Is it time to replace it,
Or change the location of it.
or change the
sometimes. Yeah.
location? Have things grown up around it? You need to move it away from this limb, or so you can see it better,
Or get it
away from dead out in front of the window.
Right,
off
that's
to
the big
side.
one, yeah.
So just inspect each thing, and if the feeder has had its life, go buy another one.
Yeah.
These things last a long time. If you keep them clean, they do well. But wooden feeders are a good thing too. Give them a good bleach job, clean them off.
Yeah.
Just do some feeder maintenance and do some house maintenance and overall assessment of your yard and what you may do better next year.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned assess your yard's tree and shrub growth, needing a little more or a little less.
Things
Yeah.
change. I mean,
Yeah.
you started doing something maybe feeding birds 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. The backyard is probably very different from what it was, and it's so slow. But also now the trees are big.
Yeah.
Where you had a sunny location for a bluebird house may not be sunny anymore. Maybe it's now under a big tree. You just need to look and reevaluate things with a fresh eye to see what you can move around. Maybe you need to do a little pruning
Yeah.
to keep the limb from being too close to a feeder so squirrels can jump on it.
Yeah.
You may need to take care of some shrubs and all along the bottom of things so predators can't hide right there under your feeder and jump out. So
Yeah.
just back up and look at it.
We recently cut down, we had planted all of the, we had planted some vines, near the birdhouses, the nesting boxes. And then they were getting so thick that a snake could easily climb up,
Yeah.
so we had to go out and cut those
Trim.
all back. Yeah, so just the
It's a
maintenance.
it's a good
right.
time to trim.
Yeah.
Fall, when the plants go a little more dormant, you can do your pruning and trimming then.
Yeah.
And make it better for the birds from a protection standpoint. And save what is actually good cover for the birds so they can get to it
Yeah.
even 3 or 4 or 5 feet away.
So this is all the time we have. In fact, we went a little over, but that's always fun. So we do want to remind you that Richard Cole is here on Facebook Live every Wednesday, every first Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock to answer your birding questions. And you can ask questions anytime on our Facebook page, and he'll answer it the next time too if you want. And we do want to also remind you to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. So our YouTube, the Cole's Wild Bird YouTube channel is doing
Yes.
really well, and we hope you'll subscribe. I think that's it for today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Cole. I want to thank each of you for watching, and I want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to share it.